And we are live. Welcome to this week's edition of the Funvee Tailgate presented by ThunderblogSports.com, a part of the Bullpen Cart podcast feed. I, of course, am Jordy Cannell, the G-Man. With me, as always, is my man, Matty D. What's up, buddy?
Well, finally, we are starting to get into the meat of both college and pro football.
Oh yeah,
and we're starting to finally see. We're starting to finally see some teams emerge as, I think, mostly in college more so than the NFL, as true contenders, teams that we know are going to be there. It was a great weekend in college football. It was nearly a chaotic weekend, chaos, if you will.
Yes.
It was fun though. I mean, it was really fun.
Yeah, we were about 5 minutes away from two top four teams going down. That being Clemson and Syracuse. Mm-hmm. And then Ohio State, Penn State lived up to the hype, I would say.
Yep. Oh, definitely. Absolutely did. Absolutely did. And yeah, I mean, and now you're starting to look at teams that are starting to have truly separated themselves, some that are getting closer and closer and closer to an almost lock, if you will.
Yeah.
For college football playoff. And we'll discuss that too. And kind of where some teams stand moving forward. And really, to me, who has a legitimate chance at doing something wild, if you will.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. Yeah, it's yeah, I mean, let's just jump right into it. So we mentioned Penn State, Ohio State, and I mean, that game was fantastic. If you didn't watch this, I'm not sure what you were doing on Saturday night, but it was incredible.
Well, I mean, I was at a wedding, so I have to admit, we did have somebody, though, as all sports fans do. There was a live stream occurring at a table at the wedding, so I was trying to watch as much as I could. Obviously, rumors started passing around. Yeah. Penn State up 13-0.
Yeah,
and you're thinking at Beaver Stadium, which to me is, and this is one of my takes for the week, it's the best number one stadium in all of college football in terms of the noise, the size, the intensity, the whiteout feature at night. It is without a doubt, to me, the number one home field advantage in all of college football.
So I'll tell you this: Real Matty D had a roommate at Northwestern who played football for the Wildcats, and he agrees with you. He said that Michigan is bigger, but because the stands go out so wide, it's not as the chaos factor just isn't as large as Penn State. That's just straight up and down in the air, and only a couple thousand seats smaller.
Right.
So it's just this, especially when they're good. When he was in school, this was like the tail end of Joe Pa.
Okay, they were struggling, right.
Yeah. Well, no, it was right before they started struggling. It was like 08, 09 when they won the Big Ten. So he said it's by far one of the craziest atmospheres he's ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the other thing too. Like when you go to be like the Big House, a lot of these bigger stadiums are sunken into the earth, like they were built into the earth.
Yeah,
to an extent. Beaver Stadium is not. It's almost freestanding. So it's just intimidating to drive up to. And it is located on campus, but it's off to the side. So you're not driving through college buildings to get there. You're driving through Penn State fans. And I think that's one of the things that just makes it such an intimidating stadium to drive up to and look at. And you're right. When the team's good, it helps quite a bit.
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, they love their Nittany Lion football. Penn Staters do. So they're going to pack that stadium no matter what. I mean, look at last year's Penn State, or 2 years ago, Penn State, Ohio State, I was at
the game.
No, I was at the game 2 years ago. You were at the one 4 years ago.
No, the one they lost in overtime. Wasn't that 4 years ago?
That was 4 years ago. 2 years ago is when they upset them.
Oh, you're right. Wow. Let's see how long ago it's been.
Matt, we've broken our streak.
That's bad.
The Thunderblog streak is broken.
That's bad.
We can did Jack go? Did your brother go? Did Kevin? We can indoctrinate them. We can give them a quick whatever the knighting into our round table.
Yeah, Jack was in there. Jack went to the game and was in the game. I believe. I went and he actually had a ticket.
He was on TV?
No, but he was at the game. Kevin went to a local bar, which, by the way, I went to one last year when Penn State played Michigan.
Yeah.
The bar was crazy. I mean,
that bar scene's nuts.
It made Xfinity Live look like child's play.
Yeah.
And by the way, I get why it did. It's a different atmosphere. We're at a college bar.
Yeah.
But the bar had wraparound TV screens. So literally everything behind the bar was just Penn State game. They're in a huge circle, and in the bar they have basically bleacher seating, but it's like restaurant seating, but bleacher seating up into the back of the bar. So you literally had people sitting, eating, watching. I mean, it was crazy. It was a crazy atmosphere. But all that being said, they didn't get it done.
No, they did not.
I went back and forth with Jack, my brother, about this, and he said, well, look, the play call on 4th and 2 was the correct play call. There was the opportunity to run the ball where they ran it. The two guys just didn't block. And my point is, I'm not saying that there wasn't an opportunity, but it's not like you had been running the football all game, right? You weren't Travis Etienne had 200 yards on the ground. I mean, McSorley had done that, but Sanders was 16 for 43 for 2.7 yards. Like, that's the play you decided to run there. Why not let Trace try to make that play, if you will? Mm-hmm. And he said, no, two guys had the opportunity to block. Well, yeah, and they didn't because they hadn't been blocking all game. So at the end of the day, it came down to a lot more than just that play, in my opinion. Yeah. But I don't. It was not, to me, the right play call, and I put blame on. I don't know how they do it there, so the blame has to me go on Franklin for that one, and he admitted to it. I mean, he said it was my fault. McSorley tried to back him up. It's a shame he doesn't have more control at the line, because I would like to see it maybe change that up a little bit and try something different there.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, at the end of that game, it got wild. It was a wild fourth quarter. And I mean, this past weekend, we said, Matt, last week, we sat here and said that we're finally getting into the thick of it, and it did not disappoint. That's what I'm probably the happiest about, is that you had games that looked like they were too close for comfort, like West Virginia, Texas Tech, and West Virginia blows them out, which I thought they were going to. I thought that was a low line of 3.5. But then you had the Clemson-Syracuse game where Syracuse has Eric Dungy, their awesome QB, who's been solid aside from the Florida State game that they still won and he got hurt in. And we've talked about this with Clemson a ton. Their defense, it looked like at times that it was a bit of a turnstile, you know? I'm not sure what to think going forward for them. I mean, they pull out the win. They're still number 3 and all that good stuff. And they have a great comeback with everything that happened with Trevor Lawrence and having no Kelly Bryant because he decided he was going to transfer. So they have Bryce, their third string QB, who's a freshman, come in and lead the comeback. So I guess that's positive, but I don't know what to think with this team anymore.
Well, I mean, a couple of things. Bryce, if he's a freshman, I know he's the third stringer, but he is like a 4-star recruit. It's not like he's a scrub. You know what I mean?
Sure.
No, I mean, I was behind Kelly Bryant's decision. I think Trevor Lawrence is better for this team.
Sure.
Have the balance to throw, but I get why Kelly did what he did. And it's a great rule, that 4-game rule. And I do praise Dabo Swinney for being up front, because he could have just started Bryant and then pulled him, and then next week in week 6 say, hey, Kelly, Lawrence is my starter, you're stuck as the backup. He did the right thing by the kid, and I think Bryant made the right decision too. Just the timing of what happened next did stink. And they're not sure if Trevor's going to play this weekend, which is definitely a cause for concern there, in my opinion. They're playing Wake Forest, who isn't a terrible team, but they're not great. And you would assume that this Clemson rushing attack with that pass rush can get it done. But it's on the road. That's going to make you pause for a second. So, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
It'll be a tough game there.
It's going to be a really tough game. And which way
is starting, by the way.
Who is starting?
If he's starting. They're not sure.
If he's starting. That's a really good point. Which way do you want to go next? Do you want to go Notre Dame, Stanford, or do you want to go to a different game?
Well, I was going to hold on them because I think that's one of the bigger games of this past week. Kind of a shocking, what's what I'm looking for? Shocking score, if you will, in my opinion. Yeah. I wanted to mention a couple other games I thought that were really interesting.
Yeah.
First and foremost, well, you mentioned West Virginia, which to me is one of the few teams left that has an opportunity I thought their defense actually played better than the score indicated. I thought it was more of their offense that got really stagnant after a big first quarter.
That's a really good point. They're up 35-10 at halftime, and you're thinking this thing's going to be. You don't even need to tune into the second half, and Texas Tech made it interesting.
Well, Texas Tech they're a ranked team. It's not like they're a bad team. They're ranked. They're good. But that was interesting. Let's talk about the game that I was really nervous about, and that was Kentucky. I really wanted the Wildcats to win against what you thought was kind of a disrespected South Carolina team, and they did, 24-10. That's a good game by those Wildcats, my friend.
Really good game. And I got to ask you, if you had to power rank, and I'm not asking you to go through each one of them, but if you were to just pick a spot in a Heisman power rankings for Benny Snell, where would you put him?
So I got to keep him out of what I think are the big four, which are quarterbacks in this case.
I was thinking that a little bit too, like a 4 or 5 spot to put him
I would probably say 5, but more likely 6. Okay. I just think you have to respect Greer, Tua, Murray at Oklahoma, and who am I missing? And I hate to say it, but Haskins for Ohio State, at least for now, has been really, really good for them. Those would be my top 4 right now. But that being said, I mean, he's definitely a guy where if he can rip off some big runs in the SEC, which is impressive, he's going to generate at least a little bit of buzz, if you ask me.
Yeah. No, I think so. I mean, you have to assume, though, that they get close to the SEC championship game for him to really get up there to potentially get the invite to New York.
Yeah.
I think that's really their only shot. I mean, I could see him maybe being 11-1 and missing out on it because they lost to Georgia. But they host Georgia in that game. That's going to be – can you imagine that? Matt, we're building towards a month from today the possibility of College game day being in Lexington, Kentucky for a football game.
Wouldn't that be amazing? That would be
insane.
That would be incredible. I like him at 6. I would still say that either I like to always vote for somebody, so maybe Ed Oliver, if you like him.
Okay.
Houston, but I think even after the loss, Trace McSorley has looked incredible, so I might still rank him a little bit ahead of Benny Snell for now. But once again, I mean, if Snell gets it going, he's going to move up into that top 4, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, this weekend will be a really good test. They're going to Texas A&M, which it's not a rollover.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be a pretty good game for him. Then at Missouri in a couple weeks. Then they play Georgia at the beginning of November. But then the rest of their schedule at Tennessee, hosting Middle Tennessee, and then at Louisville to close out the season. I mean, and they've had Louisville's number the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, definitely. The other games I wanted to mention, Texas escaped Kansas State right before the big Red River rivalry. That's where game day will be.
Yes.
That'll be interesting. Virginia Tech bounced back and beat a Duke team that's pretty good. It's important for them going into their big showdown, which we'll talk about shortly. The other one I thought that was interesting was kind of the downfall of a team that we had thought was going to have an opportunity to compete in the SEC. Mississippi State is 3-2. They just lost to Florida 13-6.
2 weeks in a row. They hit that scheme.
That's not good. Not what I was expecting there at all. Am I right? I just didn't get it.
No, it's a tough one tough pill to swallow for them because really, like, you see this with some teams where they get that 2-week skid and then they look like nothing has, they look like that those 2 weeks just didn't even exist.
Right.
You would have thought, though, that Dan Mullen kind of stalls coming home. You think that they would have had, they want to rebound so badly after Mississippi State loses to Kentucky. I don't know. It's just all credit to Florida and Dan Mullen for knowing how to put that together.
No, I definitely think that like I said, I was shocked by that just because we had talked so heavily about what we thought was going to be a really good Mississippi State team, and Mullen looks like he left at the right time. Although, they have a great quarterback, which is rare in the SEC. The defense was supposed to be really good. Clearly, it's good. They only give up 13 points, but that's tough. That's a tough one there.
Yes, I don't know.
Yeah, let's talk about the last 2 games then from Week 5. We didn't touch on one you'd mentioned, but before we get to that, our Wolverines barely, with the skin of their teeth, pulled one out against Northwestern.
They did.
Yeah, it just seems like we struggle to get off to good starts. Did it against Notre
They're
Dame.
a slow start team.
Yep. And the problem is it's both sides, offense and defense. The defense always turns it around, but the problem is the offense keeps 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. We didn't run it against a not great Northwestern defense, and that cost us early in that game. We were able to pull it out. I think it's a good learning experience for this young team. And Shea Patterson, who needs to play better than 15 of 24 for 196 yards, but they need to give the ball more. I mean, Hington did end up with 30 carries because they finally realized what they needed to do to take care of business. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the other big one are no turnovers forced by the Michigan defense.
Right, weird.
No turnovers in the game at all, actually. But, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those. This is what you think of when you think Big Ten football, but it's not what you think of when you've seen what Jim Harbaugh has been bringing to the table as the Michigan head coach. So it's kind of that double-edged sword where the defense stepped up, and they're the reason why Michigan was still in that game to eventually win it. But you need to see some more action there. Shea Patterson only drops back 24 times, and they end up getting all those runs, like you said. But going 15 for 24 for less than 200 yards is a tough look.
No, yeah, definitely agree there. It's a tune-up game. They get another one, and then they start that really difficult stretch coming up here. So they play Maryland this weekend, and then they go Wisconsin, Michigan State, Penn State.
Yep.
They need to run that table to have any kind of a shot. They are one of the 9 teams, by the way, that still have a 1% chance or more of winning the college football playoff. So I got to let you know. Getting in. One of 9. Let's see. So Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson. We're all on that list. I think LSU is on the list. Washington. Let me see. I'll bring it up real quick. I just had it up here a second ago.
Washington would have to be LSU.
All right, I'll run down.
Auburn.
Yeah, so it was Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia. This is in order. Clemson, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Penn State, Washington, Michigan. Now, so the teams that are missing are like LSU and West Virginia. They have a chance to make the playoff, but they're under 1% to make college football to win it. And I think that's because of what their schedule looks like the rest of the way, right? West Virginia is going to play a bunch of really good teams. LSU has a hellish schedule coming up here, right, where they're going to play a bunch of teams as well. So it's probably why they're left off this. It's an ESPN article that was written in this case.
Yeah.
According to ESPN's playoff predictor, if you will. So we'll see what happens. Just want to let you know we still have a 1% chance, 1.1% chance. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Obviously, there could be anything that any unforeseen upset that happens. I mean, we came into, I think it was next week is when Clemson lost to Syracuse. So I think it was a buddy's wedding, and I'm being reminded that was next week because I invited him to play golf on his anniversary. Not good. But yeah, so I think there's obviously plenty of that that there's still out there, and it's not like the season's going to play out perfectly that Penn State, Michigan becomes the next big, will it, won't it happen? LSU, Alabama's then, and then Michigan, Ohio State, Stanford playing whomever in the the next couple rounds. It'll be really interesting to see where it happens, and that's kind of the fun thing about college football. And yeah, I mean, I think LSU, West Virginia, they definitely have awesome shots at it, especially how the Big Ten works. I think West Virginia could lose in the regular season and win the Big 12. And if circumstances line up correctly, they could still make the playoff.
No, I agree. And we'll get to that. I want to make sure we get to that too. I want to talk about what our thoughts are shortly here about the college football playoff. I think week 6 has a couple really good matchups, but I don't know if it has the same strength matchups in terms of depth that last week did. So I was going to bring a couple up here. Oh, by the way, we'll talk about it because they have another big game, but I was blown away that Notre Dame hammered Stanford like they did.
So I had picked the Irish to cover on the Funvee Tailgate blog after I really fucked up picking them to lose at Wake Forest. But I don't know, their offense has looked a lot better in that Wake Forest game, and their defense has been pretty solid all season. And with Stanford being so reliant and we talked about this last week with KJ Costello pulling them through against Oregon and not seeing a Bryce Love coming out party yet. I thought that was going to be tough to see if they could do that on the road, have one of those happen. So I'm surprised at the final score and what the final margin was, but I'm not surprised to see them lose in that game.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I really thought that Bryce Love would figure it out here. He looks like a total lost cause. Huge mistake at this point that he didn't come out. Huge mistake that he didn't come out to the pros. It would appear early.
Could be a big find for an NFL team, though.
Yeah,
Third, fourth round pick.
He was arguably going to be the number 2 back off the board, some said, after Barkley. So to have him in the position where he is now, it's a shame. It's hard because you want to support players making that kind of a decision to come back for his team, for his school, to break a record, whatever it is. And you look at this and you say, no, I get why they don't come back.
Yeah. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of deal.
Right.
Remember when the Ohio State quarterbacks were like, oh, if you come out now, Cardale Jones, if you come out now after he played 4 games, he could have been a first rounder. I mean, it's all.
Yeah. And he's doing nothing, by the way.
Yeah. It's all hodgepodge, but it's all insane. I do think, Stanford still has a shot at it. I mean, that Washington game becomes so much more important. They play Utah this weekend, the Cardinals do, or the Cardinal, no S.
Yeah.
Washington goes down to UCLA, and a UCLA team that still is looking for a win, which I think is actually intriguing to this game. They're nearly 3 touchdown favorites, 20.5. I think Washington still pulls it out, but I wouldn't sleep on this becoming a close game.
This is actually one of my 2 trap games. I'm glad you brought this game up. This is one of my 2 trap games of the week.
Great minds, Matty D.
Because we talked about how we thought at some point they'll get it going. So here's why I have 2 ranked opponents playing 2 disappointing programs. Washington goes to visit UCLA. Looming is Washington visiting Oregon.
Yep.
And so this is the kind of game where this team looks ahead to Oregon. The same goes for number 16 Wisconsin hosting a winless Nebraska program because they go and play Michigan at Michigan the next week. So both of these teams need to wake up this week. I think one of these 2 squads is going to lose this week.
Ooh.
To either Nebraska or UCLA. I don't know which one.
Right.
I wanted to lean towards UCLA because they're at home, but I trust Washington more than Wisconsin. So I would not be surprised if Wisconsin loses this game. In fact, I consider putting money for at least Nebraska to cover. That's a proud Nebraska program. And so, by the way, they will have a starting wide receiver by the name of Cade Warner, son of Kurt Warner. And so he'll be playing. I'm just saying, fun fact of the day there for you. So we'll see what happens. But I like Nebraska a lot in this game. Teams get upset, and I think Wisconsin might look ahead a little bit here. So yeah, big matchup for me.
I love the hot takes. I'm glad you're jumping on the hot take train. If I had to pick one, I'd probably pick UCLA because they're at home, and more so because Wisconsin's already lost at home this year.
That's true.
And I just think that's too tough to see them losing at home twice. I know this is another game where they are a not as massive, but still pretty massive favorite. 19 points is a lot. I do like a potential close game. We'll see. It's really going to be a show me appearance from Scott Frost. I almost said show me game, but I don't know. Another one that I like is a trap game is Iowa State going to Oklahoma State. I think that could be.
We talk about Iowa State a lot. Yep.
Yeah,
program. We talk about it quite a bit, right? Yeah.
And the other one that I would have loved to pick would be Indiana versus Ohio State, but it's at Ohio State, so just take that off the board.
That's going to be tough.
At Indiana, I said this last year when there was the opening game and Indiana led at halftime. Tough out at home.
I agree. No, I agree, but I think it being at Ohio State at the Horn, that's going to cause a problem.
Yep. Let's look at a couple other lines, though, before we move to the big game of the weekend, or the big games. I'd see 2 of the biggest on the slate. One that sticks out to me, NC State hosting Boston College, are ACC games, and Clemson going to Wake Forest, and the Florida State-Miami game, but I think that's not going to be as close as I'd love it to be. But NC State, Boston College, NC State, we talked about them at the beginning of the season. They're starting to emerge. And Boston College, they slipped up a couple weeks ago, but they're still 4-1. Both of those teams could make their case to jump up in the Atlantic Division in the ACC.
My only big concern with this game is that A.J. Dillon, the excellent running back for Boston College, is a game-time decision with an ankle.
That's true. That's very true.
That's a slight concern I have there. I got to watch him. If he doesn't play, it's going to be a much longer game for an improved Boston College program.
Yep.
But I know I like that game. That's a fun one if you can find a way to tune in and watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Might teach you a thing or two.
Oh, yeah.
No, I definitely agree. I don't know. Florida State has talent. And DeAndre Francois can play. Cam Akers still a really good back there. It's only a 13.5-point line, which I know sounds like it's a lot, but I mean, Florida State has looked terrible. So, but you know what? It is in Miami, but they're in the same state. It's not like they're traveling, thousands of miles. So I don't know. I mean, I just monitor that one a little bit, possibly.
No, that's a good call. That's a really good call.
Well, let's get to the two big ones then.
Yep.
Let's start with the earlier game, which is, well, I'm assuming, by the way, we didn't really touch on LSU, Florida. They have that at a 2.5-point line for LSU on the road.
I think that's just low because Florida won last week and is now ranked again.
I don't think
LSU
Florida
showed a lot beating Ole Miss handily last week. And I get their
Florida has no offense, and LSU has a really good defense. So I like LSU more than that 2.5-point line.
Yeah.
So the early game, this is game day will be there, is that Red River rivalry in the Cotton Bowl, Texas, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is an 8.5-point favorite with the Heisman Trophy candidate Kyler Murray, accounted for 7 touchdowns last week. He has stupid numbers across the board, just incredible. Going up against, to me, you could argue this is Oklahoma's first big test. Florida Atlantic, UCLA, Iowa State, Army, and Baylor, they really haven't played anybody of elite nature, if you will. And here comes a really revived Texas program after that early stumble against Maryland. After what we saw them struggle against Iowa State and almost lose to Army, I'm siding with Texas a little bit here, more than I'm used to. I'm usually not a big Texas guy.
Yeah, no, that's a interesting play because of the fact of Oklahoma's struggles. They looked like they bounced back last week, though. They had a very nice game against Baylor. I get they let up 33 points, but Kyler Murray looks great in that game, and that offense is back to being buzzing. I get Texas
it was against Baylor, though. I was going to say,
That's true. But I still think, I don't know, 8's a lot to lay in that game. In this rivalry game, you got to think it's going to be close. I have a feeling they're going to figure out how to get it done. But this could be a game that's unforeseen, upsets Oklahoma, and then really puts a fire under the Big 12's ass collectively. Texas is 4-1. If they run the table, do they get in? And you start getting into tinfoil hat Jordy territory. But I mean, we'll really see what happens with this game. It's a big, big definer of how the college football landscape will be because of the fact that the Big 12 is a fringe playoff conference just in general.
Well, let me ask you this question. So I wanted to look this up. Last time Texas won, but Oklahoma's been dominating this series for quite a while.
Yep.
Since 2000, they've won 12 of 17 games. And some of these have been blowouts. So
yeah, absolute shellac.
Yeah, they haven't won. And so, I mean, my only thing is, like, do you think at some point it's going to bounce back a little bit for Texas here? We'll see. Should be a great matchup, though, and I'm glad game day gets to go to really enjoy this.
Huge matchup.
Yeah. The other big game is the evening game.
Yes.
Again, this is where I've got to give this school credit. Notre Dame has another big matchup. They're visiting Virginia Tech in Blacksburg. Tech with a surprising loss a couple weeks ago, bounced back strong, going up against the Notre Dame team. Virginia Tech is 24th. Notre Dame is 6th, and yet Notre Dame only has a 6-point line here. Don't sleep on Virginia Tech. They're very well coached as normal. They've got a pretty good defense. This could be one of those things where if Notre Dame comes in here to their own home a little bit, they could be surprised by a really good Virginia Tech team who had one really terrible game against Old Dominion.
No, I agree with that a lot. I think that Virginia Tech can bring in a lot of firepower. Over-under set at 57 for this game. I like that to go over. I think both offenses are in for, big days. I'm blanking on their backup quarterback's name, Virginia Tech, that took over for Josh Jackson. He looked pretty sharp against Duke. Ian Book, the Notre Dame quarterback who came in for Brandon Wimbush a couple of weeks ago, he's looked great for them. I don't know. I just like this to be a pretty, like a score in the 30s. I like it to be like a 35-30 game.
By the way, it's Ryan Willis. That's the Tech.
Ryan Willis, thank you.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think Virginia Tech absolutely has the tools to keep Notre Dame on their heels this entire game. But, I'm not going to make a pick right now. I just think that's going to be a fun game to watch. 8 o'clock on ABC. It's one of those games that I think because of the ACC on ESPN agreement, they can steal some of those games, and the fact that they don't get the Red River rivalry for the ABC game. In other words, it's not on NBC because that's Notre Dame's television agreement. It's just going to be a lot of fun to watch. It's going to be incredible. That, if you remember last year when Virginia Tech hosted Clemson and they show that walkout at night.
Oh my God, yes.
If you can tune in at like 7:45 when they're showing the team coming out right before the game.
It might be the best walkout in all college football.
It is pretty awesome. Clemson's is pretty good too, where they touch the rock. But that is it is awesome.
Yeah.
It's a ton of fun to see.
Yeah. Well, I want to wrap up college football here. We got to jump over to the real money, if you will. I wanted to bring up two things.
Yes.
Currently, season ended today, Jordy. Who's your Heisman?
Season ended today, Kyler Murray.
Okay. I like that. By the way, I honestly think it's going to end up being Will Grier. I really do.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. I think that's what I would agree with you. If the season ended today, raw statistics. I just think there's a groundswell for Tua for some reason. He hasn't thrown a fourth quarter pass yet.
Wow.
Yeah, he has not played in the fourth quarter of a game.
Holy shit.
Now, I think at some point as the season wears on, that could hurt him.
That Alabama covered their 42-point spread in the first half last week?
They're incredible.
Yeah.
They're incredible. So we'll see what happens and kind of go from there. But
they then did not cover. It was a bad beat on Scott Van Pelt.
I would like to go ahead and throw my hat in the ring, though, my last point here. I believe we already know who will be in the college football playoff.
I'd agree with that.
I really do. I think it's the top 4 teams currently ranked. I think that Alabama will be in. Ohio State and Clemson will run the table. Unfortunately, it hurts me to say that with Ohio State. And I think Georgia ends up as the 4th team.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I think Georgia loses to Alabama in the title game. And
are they both undefeated?
Yeah, yes, going into the title game. That's my cold hard lock, almost, if you will. It's nothing against Notre Dame or Oklahoma or West Virginia. UCF could be there undefeated, but I think Georgia will end up in the same. It'll be the same. Is that what it was last year too? Right?
Yeah, it was. That's exactly what it was last year.
And so here's my next hot take. It has nothing to do with, and I was talking to my brother about this. These great programs, when you think of these teams, they don't need a great quarterback. They just churn them out. It's about the program. Dwayne Haskins, Trevor Lawrence, Kelly Bryant, Tua, Jalen, Fromm, Eason. All these teams have a good quarterback or two on the roster at all times. It's all about your head coach and the program he builds around that team. He produces those great quarterbacks. And Tua might be a special talent. He might not be. Jake Fromm might be a special talent. He might not be. But you could put almost any quarterback in these systems, and the talent around them is what makes these teams great. And so I go back to the line that James Franklin used in his press conference. We're a great program. We want to be elite. Well, if you want to be elite, you've got to figure out a way to surround your team every single year with the talent that Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson do. They're always up there, right? Because of Dabo, because of Urban, and because of Nick Saban. It's everything. And it's scary how good. And even Oklahoma, I'll give them credit too. They're always good, and they always churn out a really good quarterback, it seems. Now, it looks like Baker Mayfield might have a chance, but Kyler Murray steps in and from day one is a Heisman candidate. I give Ohio State credit there too. So if you want to be an elite program, it shouldn't matter who your quarterback is. Their next quarterback should just be like Tracy McSorley. And I think that's, it's evident with those top couple teams this year because a lot of them have new quarterbacks or even quarterback controversies, which normally in football, quarterback controversies don't work. So
no, they don't. Yeah, that's been Alabama's MO, and credit to those coaches for being able to bring their programs to that level.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. And it's fascinating because other than really Haskins and Ohio State, every other top program, including Georgia, because Eason is a #1 recruit there as well. And, Fromm is kind of taken over, but Eason gets a lot of time still. So it's just amazing to me when you put them all together like that, how good these top couple programs are on a consistent year in and year out basis. And why other programs stumble is because they can't produce that same – it's like a machine, if you will.
Oh, it's crazy. No, you're right. It's crazy.
Yeah. So would that be, by the way, right now, would that be the top 4 if you had to put money down? Would you take Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, or Clemson, or do you think somebody else is going to sneak in there and take one or more spots?
No, I would put my money on that because it's you hit the nail on the head. If Notre Dame goes undefeated, you have an argument to not put the loser of the SEC championship game in. I would assume it'd probably be Georgia. Only Notre Dame, though. The Pac-12 doesn't have that argument.
What about Oklahoma?
Oklahoma would be, what is it? You said Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State. Yeah, Oklahoma would be switching in for Ohio State. Oklahoma, if they're undefeated, you have that argument too. And you might get them in instead of Georgia. I don't, but from what we've seen of Georgia, they've looked pretty solid. That said, there is going to be some sort of crazy mix-up. They're not all going to be undefeated. We saw this last year. There's going to be some week that if one of them falls, the rest of the dominoes will fall. But I think we'll see one-loss teams get in, even an undefeated team in the SEC championship lose to, their one-loss counterpart, if that's Alabama or Georgia.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. It's going to be wild.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and so we're going to get more shakeout this week. We're going to start to really nibble teams out of there, if you will.
Yep.
And kind of go from there. No, absolutely. All right. Well, college is Saturday, but no one owns a day of the week like the NFL owns Sunday.
No, sir-e. And last week, Matt, was absolutely chaotic.
Yes.
In how everything went. And I'm not just saying that because the Eagles lost in Tennessee.
Yeah, that was tough.
It was tough. It was a tough loss. Real shame that we had to endure that with so many people on the road.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That was a really tough one.
A lot of friends.
Yeah, that was hard. That was tough. But and once again, this shows you the real difference between college and the pro is the parity. It's the parity all the way.
Yep.
I just think, there are no really. I mean, there are a few teams that might be bad, but there's no really terrible teams. I think it's going to be fascinating to see who can really separate themselves. Because really, I mean, you could say the Chiefs are undefeated, but if you've watched their games, they've been hanging on by a thread because of their terrible defense. I think we can both agree that the most complete team currently in the NFL is the Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, yeah. 1,000,000% is the Rams.
They've been really, really strong, really, really good. You have to be impressed there with what they've brought to the table. But once again, I mean, it's a long season. So predicting somebody's going to be great now usually doesn't mean that much. And so we'll kind of see what happens moving from here. It's going to be interesting, but there's just a lot going on.
No, for sure. And I mean, I think this week is building up to be just as fun. A great red zone weekend, I think.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah. No, hopping around for sure.
A lot of good games on the board. And you want to jump right into it? Congratulations to you, by the way. I think you won with you had the Browns. Oh no, I won. Never mind.
What?
I thought it was 3.5 with the Browns. That it was plus 3.5. I had Oakland minus 2.5, and they won by 2. I thought it was Cleveland plus 3.5.
Oh my God, you're killing me. All right. Well, look, that's right. Let's dive in then.
Yep. The week 5 cold hard locks. Yes. Thursday night football, Greg or Matt. Excuse me. It's going to be really interesting, and I got some facts for you. Colts going to the Patriots. Colts are the number I have is 10.5 point dog.
Okay.
In this matchup, the Colts and Patriots, and we've had this a lot. Indianapolis is in the last 8 games of these two teams, the over is 8-8, or is 8-0 in the last 8 games. The underdog is 15-6-2 in their last 23 meetings.
Really?
Yep. Both teams are 2-2 this year against the spread.
Okay.
I'm going to take Indy. I'm going to go with that trend. And it's not just because of that. I think the Patriots, they're getting Julian Edelman back, which is huge.
All right.
But I'm going to take New England to win, but Indianapolis plus 10.5 because that's a lot of points to lay. Thursday night football is wacky.
Okay.
So I'm going to take the points. I'm going to take the points and run.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to take New England to win this game. T.Y. Hilton has been ruled out. It's a huge blow to an already weak offensive weapon core, if you will, for the Colts. Sure. I think the Patriots woke up last week. Julian Edelman is back. I think Brady'd like to make another statement and really say, hey, by the way, like, we're going to be really good. Don't worry about our sluggish start. So I have them smoking the Colts at home.
Okay.
Just don't think the Colts have enough offensive weapons or really good defenders to kind of slow this offense down that is now returning some, like I said, some really, really extra players. I think Edelman wants to make a statement. I think Brady wants to make a statement. And I'm going from there. And you wait. I mean, this offense looks like it's finally becoming healthy, unsuspended, and coming around. And I'm looking forward to seeing Josh Gordon getting some action too. So I'm going to take the Patriots all the way here. They smoked the Dolphins last week.
They did.
And I expect the same thing this week. And by the way, watch for Chris Hogan to finally get loose. All of a sudden, they're going to be looking at Gronk. They're going to be looking at Edelman, James White, and Josh Gordon. Chris Hogan's a guy who's been very productive over his career. So my expectation is that he bounces back too. And now this offense gets going and the defense holds on too. And I think they roll.
No, I like that. I mean, it's going to be a fun game, though. Thursday night football is not disappointed yet.
No, it is not. Not at all. Not at all.
Well, let's roll right into Sunday.
Yeah.
Starting off with a good one, an AFC North showdown. The Art Modell Bowl. The Baltimore Ravens traveling up to Cleveland to take on the Brownies. Brownies coming off what should have been a win. Should have been a win against the Raiders. There were a lot of replays that showed how they got screwed over. That said, the Ravens have looked fantastic in the last couple of weeks. They look great against a Steeler team that, granted, is in some sort of disarray, but they still looked great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take the Ravens here minus 3.5.
Yeah, I like the Ravens too. I think they're coming to life. That defense is really good. They made a statement against a really, really good offensive Steelers team, regardless of the lack of Le'Veon Bell. They still have weapons. I think they kind of put their stamp on the division as the clear favorites. I know the Bengals are 3-1 too, right? They put their stamp on the division as the clear favorites with that ferocious defense and a offense that has enough weapons around Flacco to survive. Very reminiscent. Defense is not as legendary, but very reminiscent of those old Falcon teams that would win titles based on defense and a no mistake, somewhat of a no mistake offense. And I really like Buck Allen and Alex Collins. I got to say that.
Okay, I like that.
Yep.
Buck Allen looked really good last week.
Yeah. Well, let's do another AFC North game. The Dolphins, after a crushing loss, visit the Bengals, who get Joe Mixon back.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this? Bengals 6.5-point favorites.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins are starting to show I was about to say show their stripes, but that would be a pun to use for the Bengals. Show their fins, if you will. And kind of the water is finding its level. Oh, there was a good pun. Damn it. Yeah, I know. It's a real shame that I couldn't get that one together. But yeah, the Dolphins, we thought, is this really happening? The Dolphins are 3-0. Are they actually good? We need to believe this. And we saw that last week against New England. New England's defense stifled them a little bit. Their offense really stalled throughout the game. And I think that continues here. The Bengals have been pretty good. Their defense has been solid enough. Their offense has looked fantastic, though. I mean, that's a game we didn't really talk about, was that win against the Falcons last week, where what
a great win.
To put them to bed, and just this game's over. And Cincinnati did not back down, and they end up winning on a near walk-off. I like Cincinnati to win here. I even like them to win by almost 10. I think it's that much of a lock.
I agree with you there, too. And I also want to bring up, and I wanted to mention this, too, with the Ravens. So we've talked about Julian Edelman returning, but there's a couple other really big players coming back. One is for the Ravens, their number one corner, Jimmy Smith. But Vontaze Burfict, the excellent but troubled linebacker for the Bengals, will also be back. That's a huge upgrade for this defense. I really like him. If he can stay on the straight and narrow, if you will, I think it's a huge pickup for them in that case.
Yes, that is actually humongous in terms of a pickup there.
But
let's keep it rolling. What do you got next?
So the next game I have here on the slate would be the Titans visiting the Bills. The Titans coming off – by the way, I feel like some of Philadelphia disrespected the Titans. They're a playoff team last year. Mariota looked really good. They couldn't run the ball for anything, but that's normal against this Eagles defense. And the Titans defense is underrated. I like them easily covering that 3.5-point spread that the Bills gave. I know they're visiting Buffalo, but I think this Titans team is trending in the right direction. They look like they're going to battle Jacksonville all the way to the finish.
No, they absolutely do, and that's going to be. I mean, that is going to be fun to watch coming down the stretch with them. I agree with you, though. Mariota looked really good, and shout out to Corey Davis. I didn't realize that was his first touchdown, the walk-off in overtime against the Eagles.
Really? That was his first touchdown?
Yeah, they said it was his first career touchdown.
That's really well. Look, I mean, I hate that it happened against us, but that's good for him.
Yeah, what a moment. But I mean, good on him that he was able to pull that out. And a guy with a lot of hype coming out of Western Michigan when he went to that team. And if that pairing really gets going, because that's what made it so exciting, was a speedy wide receiver with this speedy quarterback in Mariota. They can continue that. It's going to go over like gangbusters for him. I mean, not really to discredit the Bills, but it's still the Bills that we've been seeing. So I'm going to go Tennessee minus 3.5 here at Bills Mafia. It's just tough to see the way that their defense played, especially too. They were pressuring Carson Wentz all day and making making the Eagles offensive line look like complete dummies. So I think they're really going to do that to Josh Allen and the rest of that crew. Their offensive line is abysmal, and their running game is barely there. So I think this is another one where 3.5 is it's a road line. It's basically what it comes down to.
No, definitely. I like that as well. I'm going to jump right over to the next one here. A big game, really, for I think one team more than the other. It's the Packers visiting the Lions. Packers are only 1-point favorite, which I get because the Lions have looked better than their 1-3 record, at least after that first game of the season. And 2, the Packers with a hobbled Aaron Rodgers have looked like they've struggled.
Yeah, they've struggled a lot.
Yep. So I guess we'll see what happens here with this. I think it's definitely I almost think it's a must-win for the Packers with the emergence of the Bears and you assume the Vikings, whether they win this week or not, which we'll get to. The Vikings are still a really good team. The Packers need to keep pace, and 2-1-1 isn't doing that for me. I was shocked, by the way, that they lost this week. Who do you like here? Because I have the Packers winning here.
I do too. I had the Packers winning. Yeah, I think the Lions have looked sharp enough the last couple weeks. But I still think the Packers come out with a humongous win in this one.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers is due to show. I think everybody thinks he's just going to hobble his way through the season, and I think he wants to play better. I think the rest of that team wants to play better, especially that defense. That was another thing that you didn't hear because of all the different times that Clay Matthews has popped up in the headlines, including last night in the Cubs game, if you know what I'm talking about. But he didn't pop up last Sunday in their game, and I think that's something that they want to change. They want to alter that narrative, and I think the Packers win big here.
Okay.
You have them as well.
So I mean, I like to be. I definitely have the Packers winning here. Yes, 100%.
No. All right. Yeah. What do you got next? Because we're out of order in terms of ours, so I'm going to go off.
Okay. How about do this? Let's go. One of the games of the week. Jaguars visiting the Chiefs in Kansas City. Chiefs, obviously, with Showtime Mahomes and that ridiculous offense, and the Jaguars coming in looking to make a statement win again. KC is a 3-point favorite.
Yep.
Thoughts here?
So Kansas City, you made the very astute point. Their defense is not the greatest defense in the NFL. I think that they are coming up against a team that are not the sharpest tools in the shed in the Jacksonville Jaguars offense, while Blake Bortles has looked strong. That said, the real story here is Patrick Mahomes against that Jaguar defense, and how does he step up against them? Because he played a solid enough defense in the Broncos last week, but this is the Jaguars to step up from there. So seeing how Kansas City's offense performs in this game is going to be the real key. I think that they get enough to pull out the W, and 3 points is a good line. I'm going to take them by 4 or 5, but I'm going to take KC to win here, -3.
Okay. I'm taking the Jaguars.
All right.
It's hard to go
respectable enough. I would almost agree with that.
I think this defense really clamps down on Mahomes. I think this is his first game where he really struggles. I think he'll make some plays. I think he struggles. And so I am taking Mahomes here in this case to win. I mean, to blow up, excuse me, and for the Jaguars to win. Let me restate that.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. No, that's fair enough. I would nearly agree with that. The next one that I have on my list is Broncos Jets. Is that what you got? I got this as Broncos +1 on the road coming to MetLife.
See, I have this as New York +1.
You New York +1. So you have the Broncos as a favorite.
No, I'm sorry. I messed up. You're right. I have New York as a 1-point favorite.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Which I think, are we giving the Jets a lot of credit here?
I don't know why we're giving the Jets credit.
Are we devaluing the Broncos after that loss?
I mean, why? Let me ask you a question. Why would you devalue the Broncos? They I know it was at home, but against that quarterback who made some just crazy good throws, the offense was good enough. The late game attempt to tie it was incredible. By the way, Keenum missed a wide open Demaryius Thomas that would have won the game. I like this Broncos team. They're gritty. They have a great defense, regardless of what Mahomes might have done to it. I like the Broncos here to win easily. I think this is a disrespectful line to that Broncos team. They're 2-2. I mean, and they could be 3-1 easily. So, and by the way, you tell me that Sam Darnold was going to make the same plays that Mahomes did with the pass rush of Miller and Chubb coming his way?
Exactly. I totally agree with that.
Absolutely not. So, yeah, I'm totally in here on the Broncos taking this one.
No, I agree. I have Broncos +1. I don't think we need much more to say about that.
Yep.
All right, what do you got next?
Well, the next one I have on my list here is I think a really important game for both squads. It's the Falcons visiting the Steelers. The expectation is it should be pretty high scoring. The Falcons are struggling defensively. They have lost their 2 safeties, and they're starting at a linebacker. Obviously, the Steelers have dealt with injuries and no-shows. Big name there.
Mm-hmm.
We know not coming. The Steelers are 3-point favorites at home. Both teams desperately need a win here to keep pace in their division. I'm torn because it's the highest line of the week, over under 57.
Yep.
Devontae Freeman should be back. Hurts my fantasy because I've got Coleman in a bunch of leagues, but should be back. I don't know. I don't know where to go with this game because both teams have been so maddeningly inconsistent, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm basically tossing it up. I'm going to take the Falcons.
Okay.
I think they have a little bit more offensively, and I think they need a win here. I know the Steelers do too, but there's just some dysfunction on that Steelers sideline. I think it's really high scoring, but I'll take the Falcons to cover and win this game.
No, I was torn as well.
But they've been really close in every game, by the way. You know, they lost by 6 points. They lost by a touch. They lost by 37-36 last week. I don't think they've been out of football games. They've just been, it's just been tough with that defensive injuries, if you will.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm going to go with the Steelers just because I think that their offense is due for an explosion. They really underperformed against the Ravens. I think, though, that over-under is going to be in play. I would potentially stay away from it, but it's not. I mean, it could easily hit.
This isn't a game where I'm putting money on.
No, I would agree with that. I'd stay away from it. Yeah. If it's KC, I mean, that's the thing. If Atlanta looked like KC does, which they have at times, I would say put it on the over and just watch the game go and don't pick a winner. Basically, like you did with the Kansas City Pittsburgh game 2 weeks ago. But it's a stay away game just on a lot of different facets. Maybe the over, but that's about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Next one I have, by the way, that's a game I want to try to tune in for. That's a red zone game written all over it.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the Giants visiting the Panthers. Panthers 7 points favorites coming off of a bye week. I don't think this one's close. I think the Panthers do enough defensively, and I think the combination of Cam and Christian on offense gets it done for this Panthers team. I think they win by more than 7 at home against a Giants team where Odell Beckham is already wondering why they're not better. And I said, well, you have a 37-year-old quarterback and a terrible offensive line. But, yeah,
you just hit the nail on the head. It's the offensive line against that Carolina defense. That really does it for me. Going on the road is tough to begin with, and it's just, let Cam just bulldoze through some people and then toss it off to Christian McCaffrey, and that's all you really got to do.
Yep. So I think it's an easy pick for me and you there. Next one is Raiders visiting the Chargers. Raiders finally getting it done. Chargers are 5-point favorites. Team that is 2-2 and played some really tough games. Raiders have been tight. This is a divisional game. What do you like in this one?
So, yeah, divisional game. A lot of the money actually in this game is on Oakland. More than half of the public money is on Oakland.
Okay.
That said, I am going to go with the Chargers. I think that they've looked sharp in a lot of their games. I think John Gruden hidden on the road, even with his defense stepping up a little bit against the Browns. I just think that LAC gets it done. They're not a bad team, and their defense is still pretty solid. Marshawn Lynch is questionable right now, at least the last that I saw. It's going to, 53.5 over under. I would take the under there, but I like the Chargers, to cover the 4.5 point spread.
Yeah, I definitely like the Chargers here. I think I agree with you there. Offensively, they pass the ball so well. You know, they're very similar in terms of the number of weapons. They may not have the same elite weapons. They don't have in terms of Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Melvin Gordon, Eckler, they've got a really dynamic offense led by Phillip Rivers. I don't think the Raiders have a defense that can keep up.
No.
Close early, but I like the Chargers to pull away. Also, Corey Legit comes back. Their excellent defensive tackle who's been suspended for a few games as well, just like Edelman. He'll be back to kind of shore up the middle of that defense as a 3-4 defensive end. I think that's a big spot for him both against the run and the pass rush. Just try to slow down Lynch and a kind of a physical Raiders offense. I like definitely the Chargers in this one, though, even though it's basically a away game for them because they're playing at home. Let's skip the first 425 game, if you will, and jump to the second one. Cardinals 49ers, which, by the way, 2 weeks ago I would have told you it's a lock for the 49ers. They're only 4-point favorites at home versus a terrible Cardinals team. What are your thoughts on this one?
So I'm actually going to take the Cardinals here.
I like that a lot, and I'm bummed I let you pick first because we're going to have the same pick. I like them winning this game too. Oh, man.
Yeah, I like him outright. That said, the 49ers look better than they should have last week against the Chargers. I like the fact that George Kittle's getting involved, and I picked him up just kind of on a flyer, thinking that he'd be the only weapon for their backup QB. I mean, that's really all they got, though. I mean, Breida has sort of stalled out, and but Rosen's looks solid. Their defense is a little better. I like this as the Cardinals' first win.
And it is a divisional game too, which always makes things closer. So I agree, and good for the Cardinals, I think. The next one we talked about at the start, and that's maybe the most clearly the class of the NFL. Rams visiting the divisional Seahawks, only 7-point favorites, which I do understand because you're going to play up in Seattle with the 12th man. It's going to be loud. Another divisional game. And we talked about the Seahawks not being an easy out, and clearly at 2-2 they are not. The Rams coming off that high-flying win against the Vikings, which shocked a lot of people. Yes. No Earl Thomas for Seattle. I think that is going to force me to take the Rams to cover. Give me Earl Thomas to kind of close out the deep ball, and I think this is a better chance.
I agree with that entirely.
Just too much, though. Too much Rams.
1,000%. I agree.
I mean, you think Seattle's offensive line is blocking Sue and Donald? Please.
No.
Please.
No.
Yeah,
no,
okay,
no,
good.
no,
I'm glad we're on the same page here. Definitely. And I think the Rams cover that 7 points.
Yeah, I have them absolutely covering that.
How about this next matchup? In the Sunday night game. Cowboys. It's a Texas shootout. Cowboys visiting the Texans. Both 2-2, 1-3 Texans finally getting a win last week. Cowboys, I wouldn't say they shocked some people, but the way they played, getting Elliott really involved, I think was smart by them, both in the run and the pass game. Who do you like in this one?
I like Houston.
Me too. Damn it, we're picking the same teams.
It's not even just because I dislike the Cowboys. It's more of just the fact that we've seen this with them where the Cowboys had this great game last week, and I just don't see them coming into Houston to try to pull it out. I think that they stall there. I think that defense is back. It's definitely legit. And I just think that they eat up. They might struggle with Ezekiel Elliott, but they're not going to let Dak Prescott be the X factor in this game.
I definitely like that take, and I think offensively they're kind of coming around to an extent, which I like a lot too. And I think they really need this game. They were an expected playoff contender, but with the Titans and Jacksonville being so good, they've got to compete. So I like Texans here as well. Monday night, interesting matchup. I wouldn't say surprising Redskins, but a 2-1 Redskins team that just kind of throttled the Packers.
Yep.
Visiting the Superdome, and the 3-1 Saints, who, defense be damned, to me, have the best fantasy player right now. Alvin Kamara is averaging over 30 points, the only player to currently do it. And, by the way, Breeze, roughly 200 yards away from the all-time record, struggled last week, so did Michael Thomas, and Mark Ingram is back. So Thunder and Lightning is back in New Orleans. The defense seems to be at least holding water at this point. They're 6.5-point favorites at home on Monday night. Do you think the Redskins have a shot here?
I think they have a shot in a shootout game, which I think this is going to be, but I really like New Orleans to cover this. I think by at least a touchdown, I have 6.5 points as one of my scores, or it's one of my lines, but I really like that what the Saints are bringing to this one. They've really bounced back from that week 1 loss to the Fitzmagic. And really, I mean, their offense has been humming on all levels. Kamara looks outright insane. Granted, they played the Giants last week and just dummied them, but still, he looked incredible in that game. I just think it's going to be tough for the Redskins to keep pace in this.
I just don't think the Redskins have enough weapons.
Yeah.
They just don't have it. They don't have a lot of those explosive weapons, and you need that against a Saint team. You have to be able to hit them for an 80-yard touchdown. And I don't trust Crowder or Josh Doxson enough to do that. That's why I like the Saints in this one.
It's tough.
Final game. 4:25. It'll be on national TV. A rematch of the slaughter last January. The Vikings, after a after a defensive meltdown against the Rams last Thursday night, get a long week to prepare for the Eagles, who were shocked, stunned, if you will, by the Titans. We already talked about that. Eagles get the respect of a Super Bowl champion at home, 3-point line. A long, awkward pause here for this one.
Yep. I'm taking Minnesota with the points.
I have Minnesota winning too.
Yeah. I think it's
sorry. It's
tough.
Really hard for me to say.
It's a tough one for me to pick, but the way the Eagles offense looked and the way Minnesota's defense has looked, I don't like this as hitting the over. I have the over under on this game.
I agree with that.
It's at 45 and a half. I like the under in that. Not a big under better, but I just don't like that.
Let me ask you a question. How many competing picks do we have right now? Do you know?
We have the Thursday night game, Kansas City, Jacksonville, Atlanta, Pittsburgh. So that's 3. And then after that, we are all good in the afternoon. So 3 competing picks.
Yeah, that's not enough for me. So I'm going to flip. And I think
take the Eagles.
I'm taking the Birds. And
here's
why I'm taking the Birds. One, they're at home. And I think that has mattered this year. Clearly. We're undefeated at home.
Absolutely.
Yes. And our defense tends to show up at home. But more importantly, we saw a glimpse of the return of Carson. And I think the weapons are in place now. Alshon Jeffrey showed up last week. Jordan Matthews showed up. Zach Ertz showed up. Give me Aguilar not dropping balls, which he hasn't done. It's not a thing he does. And also, give me either Clement or Sproles to go along with the Ajayi. And I think the weapons have been – that was one thing I noticed last week, by the way. With Ajayi's back injury, Smallwood had to play a lot more. We didn't have our receiving backs, and that's a huge deal in the NFL. Also, we're trashing Jalen Mills. We did that. Remember, after the Bucs game, we trashed Jalen Mills. He rated out the following week as the best corner in football by Pro Football Focus against the Colts. Now, I know we gave up a long pass interference call against the Colts. I get that. Just saying, look for this team to rebound at home, that pass rush to get going. We don't want this Vikings team walking out here. So I'm going to switch my pick. I gave you my reasons as to why we're going to win. But once again, I think it's going to be really close, and I'm very nervous about Sunday. But I want to make sure we have some competing picks because I need to beat you this year.
Yeah, you do.
And you know what? It's easy to flip-flop and pick my team. So, I'm sure you'll be telling me I told you so next week, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fun in this. It's all for fun and games, except when I lose money betting. But, Matt, this is going to be a fun weekend of football.
Yes, it is.
I'm really fucking excited.
Yep. Starting tomorrow night. Thursday game should be great.
Oh, yeah. I thank you for coming on.
No, of course.
You're going to be listening to this on Thursday, so if you want to take my pick to the bank, go right ahead. But, Matt, I will talk to you. Yep. I'm going to North Carolina, driving down there tomorrow, so I'm going to be watching everything from down there. And let's go Birds, baby.
Absolutely go Birds.
Woo!